the task of opening school facilities and welcoming children during a pandemic while keeping children and adults from getting sick is an impossible task. When we set out to do this, we all knew that we were working on a plan that would mitigate risk, that would reduce risk whenever possible, that could open facilities in a scenario where the region or the state or the nation had been deemed safe to re-enter public life. Every single one of you recognizes that we're having this conversation about opening school facilities during a period of time where about 1,000 Americans a day are losing their lives to COVID-19. We're also having this conversation during a period of time where there are many aspects of public life in our region and in our state that are not yet open for public. So it's a difficult task, to be sure, to be absolutely certain that the opening of school facilities and the welcoming of children, faculty and staff members and administrators into those facilities on a daily basis, and then to be able to say that it's safe. Personally, I think that would be an elusive promise to make. And I think it's important that we recenter and think about that as we're moving forward, particularly since the day before yesterday, you and I heard from the governor, and we're expecting to hear more from the governor related to the opening of school facilities this week. And the governor was very clear in his statement that parents, guardians, teachers would be and should be a part of the process as to whether or not they determine returning to school is safe for them. Because the level of safety and what folks determine to be safe, of course, is individualized, right? There are some of us who have been out in public since the outset of the pandemic doing what we do. There have been others who have not come out yet. And our task, of course, is to try and thread the needle and put a plan together that is, in our estimation, the safest plan during a period of great uncertainty and certainly risk. We did that because of your hard work and because of all of the dedication that you've had to this process. We did put together and put out an initial draft plan, as you know, on Friday. And as you know, everybody in our community and every community all throughout the state of New York is examining those plans and sharing their thoughts and opinions. And that's important. Thoughts and opinions, recommendations and suggestions are all important parts of a process if you are committed to truly engaging in a collaborative dialogue when it comes to reopening school facilities. That said, this committee knows, just as I know, that we need to be very clear with our community that any proposed plan for reopening school facilities that we put out, any iteration of that we put out, comes with it inherent risk. Anytime you start to put more human beings in a confined space, we know that the likelihood of spreading COVID-19 and any other communicable illness increases. Temperature checks on site, at home, periodically during the day, checks for symptoms, physical distancing, wearing facial coverings, washing hands, making sure that traffic flow is reduced in school hallways and stairwells and restrooms. All of those things help to mitigate risk. They do not erase it. When this is over, and it will be over at some point in time, we're going to come back to these videos, we're going to come back to these planning processes, we're going to come back to all of this that we learned, and we're going to look at it. And people are going to Monday morning quarterback you. They're going to Monday morning quarterback you all day long. And that's why I'm taking this moment in time to recenter us and reframe us on the most important aspect of this work. And that is trying to keep every one of our children, every one of our adults, and every one of our community members as safe as possible. We know that the governor is going to give us some more remarks this week. Looking forward to hearing from him. We also know that we are collecting more information from our community, and we'll continue to do so. Another survey is going to go out. Deb Algarden, I'll talk to you a little about that in a moment. Another survey is going to go out to our community, and this survey is going to be very short. It's going to be very simple. We're going to be asking parents and guardians, do you intend to send your child back to school facilities if school facilities are open? We're also going to ask them if you were given the option. If the state of New York provides us and allows us to give the option for full remote learning, would you take that option rather than re-entering school facilities? I think it's important. I think it's important to get a sense of where our parents are. I can tell you from talking to thousands of people over the last several weeks, folks are on both sides. We'll hear from Maggie. She'll tell you about what we're learning, and certainly from our colleagues, our teaching colleagues, what we're learning about our workforce. We'll check in with all of our subgroups like we do and hear how we are and how we're moving along in terms of our continued planning. And your voice, of course, is really important in this process, will remain really important in this process, because I will tell you this, I guarantee you this, regardless of whatever we determine, regardless of whatever plan we put forward, there are going to be people who don't like it. There are going to be people who like it. And there are going to be people who just trust. That's a big group of people who trust. And that's an important responsibility that we remember that we have. When parents trust us with their children, every day they expect that the plan that we have in place will help to return their children to them at the end of the school day, safe and sound. You take that responsibility really seriously. So do I. I can tell you that anybody who is upset about the way in which you approach opening schools or recommend opening school facilities will not be there if trouble happens. They won't be there if kids start to get sick or if people in the community start to get sick. We will, and that's why it's so important that this committee believes in the plan that we're putting forward, the plans, the iterations that we're putting forward, and understands how important this task is. I can speak as president of the Lower Hudson Council of School Superintendents. I can speak as Southern Westchester BOCES Superintendent, Chief School Administrators President. I can speak as a member of the Regents Reopening Committee. I can speak as a member of the County of Westchester Reopening Committee. But most importantly, I can speak as a dad. At the end of the day, all that matters to every one of our parents and guardians is that their kid is safe. I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm not being dramatic. You know me. Those of you who know me well know I'm pretty dispassionate when it comes to making decisions. Look at the data, look at the numbers, look at the evidence, make the best decision for kids. It's no different what we're doing right now. So thank you. This is hard work. This is not prom committee. You didn't join this committee to make friends. You joined this committee to protect kids and to protect this community. All right. I'm going to start out with Mr. Pepper in Human Resources. Lots happening in Human Resources. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Dr. Ricca. Good morning, everyone. So everyone should be aware, at least our district employees, all of our materials are out now, our surveys, our forms related to employees who are requesting accommodations, employees who have been impacted by COVID-19. And we're really trying to determine, based on what our current plan is as of today, which employees will be able to return to work, which employees may need an accommodation and through an accommodation would be able to return to work. Also, we're trying to make a determination of which employees have underlying medical conditions or childcare concerns that may impact their ability to come to work and may prevent them from coming to work. On the child care side, we recognize that not everyone knows exactly what the plan is going to be for their children and their school district, so that we may have to be very flexible there, and it may be more of a late notification in terms when they finally figure out how their schools are going to open or if their schools are going to open. And in the meantime, we're doing our best to prepare as best we can by screening and interviewing as many substitute teachers as we can to try to just beef up our substitute areas in all areas of employment. So if we do have employees that are unable to return to work, if we return and when we return, that we have sub people who can fill in for them. So the requests are starting to come in. We're beginning to assess the requests, take a look at them and see what we can do. We will be reaching out to all of the employees who have submitted requests to have the conversations to see if we can determine what would be considered a reasonable accommodation so that the employee feels safe and can return, or if they cannot return, what the options are under those circumstances. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. It's going to be a busy few weeks. Probably the next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be extremely busy in having those conversations and making those decisions. And we'll continue to monitor, obviously, what we're doing in White Plains, and we'll be flexible and we do whatever we have to do accordingly. So that's essentially where we are with HR.
Thanks, Mr. Pepper. And thanks again for reminding me to look out the window yesterday. Anybody have any questions for HR? Great. Thanks, Scott. Ms. Algarden, morning.
Good morning, everybody. So we are sending out a survey today. Essentially, the survey has 2 questions. The first question is, if schools are open for in-person learning, are you sending your child? And if there's a remote option, the second question would be, if there's a remote option, would you elect a full remote option? We're really trying to get a sense of who will be in September and who won't be. And that would better guide our decisions about how many students we can bring in at a time. So we hope we'll have that information on Monday. We are asking people to say the grades of their children so we can get a sense of what that means in each building. With regard to special education, we continue to flex our plans as the building plans solidify, working closely with building administration. We've met with all the PPS staff, the special ed staff to keep them informed. We'll continue to meet as things change. I had a coffee talk last week. We had 2 coffee talks. We had about 80 parents attend to give information about special education. On August 13th, El Centro is helping us to put together another coffee talk for our parents who are primarily Spanish speaking. We found so that we're making sure that we're getting our information out to everybody. The Social and Emotional District Committee continues to work. They'll be meeting on Monday in their working groups. Really excited about that because we already have lots of information to share with the subcommittees that will help their work with regard to professional development for teachers and staff, and how we're going to refer children to different tiers of support when they enter school in September, and then a robust resource list for parents, for teachers, and for community members. So the work is plugging along. I want to thank you, Dr. Ricca, for that reminder about where we really are in our lives right now. Right, Dr. Ricca and I had this discussion yesterday. We're so busy putting one foot in front of the other, we've kind of forgotten why we're doing all this work and that we really are still in a critical pandemic and in unprecedented times. So thank you, Dr. Ricca. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Rosemary?
Yeah, just quick, and I think I missed it. When will the surveys go out, Deb?
The survey will go out today and it will close on Monday. So it'll be up on the website. We'll send it out through K-12 alerts. And it's quick, it's 3 questions.
Facebook, we'll get it on Facebook and all that too.
Yeah. And you answered my question. I was wondering about the K-12 too. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anything else? Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Deb. Dr. Vaccaro-Teich, operations.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question about the survey? Is that an anonymous survey or is it going to be each person will be identified? Because you said it'll go out on Facebook, it'll go out here and there. So people will be, you will know who's responding to each survey, each family, correct?
We'll know, we're asking for the grade level at this time. We won't know particular families.
Okay, so like if it's on Facebook and people who really don't even have kids in the district are responding to it, how will you weed that out?
Like that certainly absolutely could happen. Same, with the other surveys we put out. Again, this is not binding. It's to give us at least a first look, give us a sense of what we're talking about. We don't even know if the state will allow us to provide for an option for remote, but we want to at least get a handle on what people are thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm just, I'm just saying that, we should have accurate numbers because there's a lot of people trolling Facebook that don't even have kids in the district, not even sure live in the district, and they're creating havoc and, getting people pretty riled up. And, I just think that maybe it would be better that it went directly to the 7,000 families in the district.
Well, it will. It will go to the 7,000 families in the district. But we also know that some families don't, necessarily engage with the K-12 as much as others. It's imperfect, Ms. Vitale, for sure, but it will give us at least some idea of what people are thinking, anecdotally.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing that's important to mention, and thanks for bringing that up, Ms. Vitale, even if an option exists for parents and guardians to choose for a remote option completely, none of that can be binding for any period of time other than that moment. So parents and guardians would, I know some school districts are indicating that they would like parents and guardians to make a determination for a quarter or a semester, which is great. And you can do that. And when we get to that point, if we're allowed to do this, we will ask that as well. However, that doesn't preclude families from changing their decision based upon whatever the landscape may be. Dr. Vaccaro-Teich.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Just as an update to our last meeting, we are working on and did receive a letter of insurance from legal counsel regarding the daily health checks for parents. And Ron, I believe, is on, but we'll be trying to facilitate that through Infinite Campus, where parents would be able to go into the portal and be able to complete that letter of insurance on a periodic basis throughout the year. That will be also, in addition to the fact that we'll be doing K-12 every morning to send out notifications to employees and parents as far as the daily health check and the temperature checks. Maggie was able to really nail down the fact that we're going to be doing health aids through BOCES, that through one of their contractors, we'll be able to contract those services, and they'll be able to be that support at our buildings and already be trained to help track down those non-responders, contract tracing, and those who respond that they're having symptoms. In transportation, we're moving fast with the Z-Pass. There'll probably be a one-time cost of about $50,000 to, equip each of our 120 buses. And then ongoing cost for that is $60 a year per bus. So Sergio is working with the bus company to see how fast we can get that installed. We're also working on doing a specific confirmation for parents who are going to opt for transportation. And, again, we're going to try to do that through Infinite Campus, through the portal. So Sergio and Ron will be working on something along those lines. We think we need it in addition to how we're routing. Our routing is normal, but we do want to have some sense of the folks who are really going to take the transportation. The survey was up to, the district-wide survey had 1,600 responses, and the question for transportation had over 1,000 parents responding that they were going to drive their child to school. Also in transportation, there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done in order to do the Wednesday routing and assignment of students, because that is unique and stands alone with the fact that we're going to have our high need students come in on Wednesday. And also in food service, I think a decision has been made that kindergartners will stay in the classroom to eat lunch just because of you know, the number of periods and being able to achieve distancing in the cafeteria. But I'm going to go to each one of my folks. Maggie, do you want to chime in with some additional information?
Hi.
Yourself, yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to let you know that I got the health survey out for all the employees, and I just wanted to give you some numbers so far. We have 540 employees that have already filled out the health survey. 186 of them have underlying health conditions. 177 of the employees say that they have a dependent or someone that's 65 years or older that lives in their household. 153 of them do not have any child care if we go into school with a hybrid model, or if their child becomes ill. And 196 said that they have major concerns, mostly regarding child care and health issues that can impact their safety. So far we really have a lot of people that really need child care if we're going to be teaching 5 days a week. And there's a lot of people that have health conditions. So this is the reason why when I did my mask policy, which I will share, I put down that we all have to have the kids wear masks all day if we do go, you know, to school in September with mask breaks, because I want to make sure that anybody that has a comorbidity is safer. So kids should have their masks in their class at all times unless they have to have a mask break. And we can give them mask breaks throughout the day. The other thing is I'm trying to get sub-nurses hired as well as health aides. They're all going to be trained in contact tracing, so that if there is, you know, somebody that gets ill within the classroom, we can contact trace safely and quickly and efficiently and get whoever needs to be quarantined done so quickly. This will decrease the amount of people that will be exposed. What other updates? I've been, you know, working really hard trying to get more PPE just so that I make sure that everybody gets all of the supplies that they need to keep themselves safe within the classroom. And that's pretty much my updates. Does anybody have any questions?
Not a question, Maggie, just do you want to make mention of the N95 fitting?
Yes. Well, according to the state, we wanted to make sure that the nurses and the custodians and anybody that comes into contact with any kinds of aerosol or chemicals get N95 masks, but the masks have to be fitted. So I'm in the process of trying to order several masks for the employees that need it, just in case we have to do like the nebulizer treatments or the custodians doing all the heavy cleaning with the spraying, that they're safe. But they have to be fitted, these masks, so that people remain safe that are doing, you know, all of these treatments. As I said, if I have to give an asthma treatment to a child, I already spoke to Dr. Longobardi. We already put an asthma protocol in place. And I think it's a pretty good one. I spoke to a couple of people that I know that are pulmonologists, and they agreed with me 100%. So it's something that's going to be safe. We're not going to try to use the nebulizers at first. We're going to use the spacers on every single child. I ordered additional spacers in case a parent does not have the availability of sending in a spacer with an inhaler so we can ensure that every child gets the medication that they need. But we will also be assessing them with the O2 sats. So I ordered O2 sats, extra ones just in case, to make sure that we have everything that we need to take care of any asthmatic child safely. What else? Well, with the masks, I did do a mask protocol. I just wanted to make sure that I put pictures with it before I share it, because I think that a picture is worth 1,000 words. You know, I can write something, but, you know, if you see it, you really get a good indication on how to use something or how to do something. So when I pack up the masks, which I'm going to begin to do this week, because we have masks for every child and every employee, I'm going to put the mask protocol, how to use the mask, how to wash the mask, and also the pictures that are included in it. I'm going to put it in a bag, in a paper bag, because that's a breathable bag. I don't want anybody to put their masks in Ziploc bags if they used it and they're damp, because I don't think that's a great idea. So it just gives you the instructions on how to use a mask, how to put it on, how to take it off, and our policy. That way, when the parents get it, they really realize what we're going to be doing when they come back to school. And I'm going to put a recommendation in there that please, you know, parents have kids practice at home wearing masks, so that when they come to school, they've already, you know, had a mask on for a prolonged period of time. This isn't going to be a new thing, you know, so that's another thing that's in the works.
Thanks, Maggie. And I see Mrs. Lyons has her hand up. Just Maggie, John LaPlaca added in the chat that Southern Westchester BOCES does have a contact in terms of fittings, and I know you know, just in case.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on to, I think that they have something tomorrow, or Frank had shared with me. So I'm gonna go and sign up for that Zoom so that I have the latest information. Thank you.
Great. Also, the county, I saw the draft last night. I think it's pretty solid. The county will be issuing the contact tracing and also the identification of COVID-19 in schools, FAQs, and decision tree today, I believe. That'll go to all the school districts for their incorporations into their draft plans. When we have it, we'll share it with the committee as well, so you can examine it. We'll also share it with our community. Hopefully that will help folks at least gain a sense of how the approach will be in conjunction with the Westchester County Department of Health and the State of New York Department of Health, when and if and when COVID-19 erupts in schools. Also, just so you're aware, we are speaking with various vendors about the possibility of testing kits at school. This is very different than anything that any public school, I believe, has ever been expected to do. According to the New York State Department of Health guidelines and the New York State Education Department guidelines, testing does not really fall within the purview of a school district per se. However, day before yesterday, the governor was pretty clear in his remarks that he did expect school districts to have not only testing capability, but also a good handle on the size and scope of the universe of folks to be tested, the time or the percentages of individuals who would be tested daily or weekly, and also how quickly those tests would be returned. Tests, so that the committee's aware, and I'm sure you are, tests come in basically two fashions, right? They come in an antigen fashion, which is your rapid response, rapid answer test, and that is less accurate than the molecular test, which is the test that you would undergo, and then that would be sent to a laboratory to be examined. And of course, the turnaround time, as anybody who has received one of those tests knows, is not fast and likely would increase as more individuals are in the queue for results of the testing. So we are talking with folks about that, the antigen side. and also with our community partners at our healthcare facilities, should we have an issue where we need large-scale testing to take place. Remember, I think it was the fourth consideration in the state education department's reopening guidance was make sure you as a school district have a sense of the capacity of your local hospital. So that all falls in line with that requirement as well. Thanks, Maggie. Go ahead, Mrs. Lyons.
Hi, so thank you, Nurse Maggie, for working tirelessly and nonstop to secure more PPE. I want to thank Nurse Maggie and Frank and Dr. Ricca for agreeing to hold a session, an informational session for health and safety for staff. It's really important. The three things I really want to highlight is staff is terrified. There are many staff members that are terrified about walking into buildings that are incredibly hot and trying to ensure that students are really going to be held, and other staff members, to wearing masks. We really need to move that forward in a very methodical way, and in a way where we know we're going to follow up with folks who are not masking up. Also, they're going to really want to hear this FAQs and these protocols for contact tracing. Folks do not have confidence in that process at all, as highlighted in what recently happened in North Castle. And I'm also wondering if we can get N95s for folks who have underlying conditions, who have the secondary underlying conditions. That could also be really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Lyons. Mr. Pepper.
Yeah, Joe, I just want to comment on the numbers that Maggie shared. Obviously, it sounds as if there's at least a third of our staff who believe they have either an underlying condition or perhaps have childcare concerns. But the number could be higher than that, because I'm sure there are some duplicates in there if you add up all the numbers in the various categories. So my question for Maggie is there a way for her to extrapolate the results, take a closer look at them to try to get a more accurate number in terms of the percentage of employees who may have a condition or have childcare concerns? Because I think it may be higher than the 30% or 33%.
Well, I just have to say that we only have 540 people that responded so far. I can certainly look through my, I actually have it in an Excel sheet, so I can really look at the percentages and break it down for you.
Yeah, if possible, Maggie, if you could share that with me. I'm not interested, obviously, in anybody who responded to the specific conditions, the health conditions.
Right.
However, if you could give me the raw data so that I could see it, I could also probably take a look at it. It would help me have a better understanding of how many employees may be eligible for some sort of accommodation or may not be able to return to work. So I would appreciate that.
Not a problem.
You might want to send out reminders just to get, more folks to respond. Or
I'll definitely
acknowledge one way or the other. Yeah.
Thank you, Nurse Maggie. You're doing amazing work. Thank you.
Absolutely. Frank, is there an update from facilities that you want to?
Sure. Well, we're continuing getting our classrooms ready. But we're also, while we're doing this, we also have several capital projects as well as maintenance projects going on. As you know, or maybe you probably don't know, but Church Street, we removed all the ceilings and the corridors, and we're replacing that with the lighting. We have the high school, we're going through a whole electrical upgrade. The pool, we're actually replacing the HVAC system in the pool. We also have air conditioning going in at Church Street, 16 classrooms. And we have 5 classrooms at the high school and A-wing that are be putting in new ventilation and air conditioning. To go back, hand sanitizers, we've agreed to put hand sanitizers, touchless ones in all the classrooms throughout the district. We just got our first 350. We distributed them to the elementary schools and they're being installed now. We're waiting for 350 that we ordered in actually beginning of June, and we still haven't heard yet, but I've secured another 350 from another vendor, and I'm just waiting for confirmation if the first one doesn't come through Perel, which I thought would be delivering to us, If they don't deliver, then we'll be ordering that, and we should have it next week. Cleaning, we finished our specifications. We distributed our classroom checklist to all our custodians. We're going through all the classrooms now. We developed a cleaning log for when we come back in September and our stations. And right now we're working on our training requirements. Before we go back to school, every custodian and my staff will be retrained on the whole procedures of what's going to happen in September. HVAC, I know a lot of questions. I wish I had control of the weather, and I don't. And I wish we had air conditioning in all the schools. We don't. So, you know, be happy to work with the staff to get that completed and to see what accommodations we can make. I can't make any promises, but we are working on Highlands and a ventilation system. We found we had like, and maybe you don't know, 68 fans for the unit ventilators that have literally disintegrated. And we're looking at replacing them. We went through the third floor, we went through the second floor with both our control company who actually does the controls and also the company that actually makes the unit ventilator. I brought the manufacturer's rep in. You know, they provided 2 mechanics to us and they're going through Highlands right now. We'll hopefully get through that. The rest of the schools, we're in pretty good shape. My guys are PMing all the equipment, preventative maintenance of all the equipment and making sure everything's running. And last, you mentioned N95s. N95s are really for nurses or for, you know, my staff because they're spraying, you know, chlorine, disinfectant spray. For the teachers, I don't have a problem trying to secure N95 masks. The difference is the KN95 masks have a loop around the ear and not around the head. So, but we'd be happy to look at that. I do have some here. We'll have to come up with a number. If you have a number, we could talk about that.
Frank, not to interrupt, I apologize, just I'm looking at my battery. I know that many, besides teachers, many staff, whether the 12-month staff and TEAs, 10-month staff would be interested who have underlying conditions also.
And I just interrupt a little bit. I just wanted to reiterate that the masks that I did order for all of the staff have a pocket for a filter that could also take out a lot of the small micro, infections in the air. So that might be a more comfortable alternative. The N95 masks are, if somebody has especially a respiratory condition, may not be the best for them because I think it would not let them breathe properly. So it's gonna have to be a very individual choice, and we'll have to work with each employee to figure out what's best for them. Okay.
Thank you, Frank. You know, that's a great point. While we're doing all this, we are still doing all of the other things in the school district. So thank you for that, Frank. Again, another reminder. Go ahead, Adele, I see your hand.
I'm sorry. What about the classrooms through the district? Because Frank, you were talking about the air ventilation, but I know many rooms throughout the district have no windows. Are we going to be relocating students or staff from those offices, or how?
We have H2M coming in. We're evaluating any spaces that, just because it doesn't have windows doesn't mean it doesn't have ventilation. I mean, we have plenty of rooms that have unit ventilators that provide outside air into the space, exhaust. So, but we're trying to identify classrooms or rooms, offices that don't have ventilation. So that's what we're working on now.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want to share more about the food service and the work with the buildings other than the K? I wasn't sure if there was something.
Yeah, sure. I plan on within the next couple of weeks just trying to meet with each building principal and administration, along with my lead food service staff in each building just to go over complete details on the service plan. And would include also just ironing out a way that we're going to feed the remote kids. So yeah, within the next few weeks, planning on in-person meeting and just going over things with everybody.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Sergio, is there any other, did I leave anything out? I don't see Sergio. Okay, maybe he dropped off.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
No, I think you touched on everything.
I think that's it, unless Ron, I don't know if Ron has anything to add.
No, I'm sorry, Dr. Vaccaro-Teich, that's not it. I need you to talk a little bit so that the committee understands the fiscal landscape in the state right now. Sorry.
No problem. I think I mentioned it at our last week's meeting, but let me just reiterate a couple of things. So when we had adopted the budget, there was a pandemic adjustment that was made by the governor's office. And in place of that, there was the funds from the federal government called the CARES program. Now, as we've gone through the CARES information and the application, it is clear that those funds from the feds are for COVID-related expenses. So we will be putting together recommendations to reduce our operating budget that was approved by $1.6 million, which is the amount of the pandemic adjustment. And we will allocate and support with the CARES application that $1.6 million. So our normal operating expenses will go down by 1.6. The federal funds will support 1.6 million of our COVID expenses. In addition, we know our COVID expenses will far and exceed the 1.6 million. So at year end, June 30th, as part of our planning with the board, we did set aside additional funds to support these expenses. And so we will be putting together a comprehensive detailed list for the board so that we can appropriate those funds as appropriate to support the reopening plan. In addition, we fully expect, the governor, as you know, had promised that he would reevaluate the state aid budget over 4 cycles this year. And, he has slowed the payment of some monies from the state. And we fully expect that if there's not a federal stimulus within the next few weeks, that we will see additional cuts to our state aid, which will result in additional operating budget cuts. We're continuing to pursue the FEMA application, but you cannot double dip. So we'll make that decision the best place to get our reimbursement from. And am I missing anything, Dr. Ricca?
Thank you very much. And go ahead, Rosemary.
One quick question, and I saw in the chat that Frank has to go. Just wondering, are there any rooms if they that don't have a vent that could pull in fresh air from outside? I'm assuming if there are such rooms, they wouldn't be used?
Yeah, I mean, without doubt, it's got to have a unit vent and some form of ventilation. And so that's what he is working with H2M to evaluate all of our facilities to make sure that they have the appropriate ventilation. And if something is, not deemed appropriate, we would not use that.
Okay, thank you for that. So if there's no, well, every room should have a vent, but so then there wouldn't be one without at least a vent if there's no window.
Yeah, you've got to have one or the other. Frank's certainly the expert, but fresh air direct with a window, or the unit vent, which is somehow circulating that fresh air and circulating it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure, anytime. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ann. Dr. Hand and I have been talking, and certainly all of the folks who have been working with regard to curriculum and instruction have been planning and thinking and planning and studying and reviewing every possible way to, again, best be able to reintroduce children into school facilities in the safest manner possible while attending to the guidelines from DOH and the guidelines from SED. Lots of different variations out there. Of course, differences abound related to school district size, the availability of space, all different types of variables in different communities. And I can tell you that in every one of those communities, every one of the draft plans that was put out is being compared to other communities throughout the state. White Plains is not unique in that role or in that sense. And you know, it's an important part, I think, of the conversational process. In listening to parents and guardians and community members, we've committed to remain flexible in our thinking. We've committed to remain open to consideration of all different types of scenarios with regard to the reintroduction of people into the facilities. I asked Dr. Hand to talk with our team members again about looking at scheduling, about making sure that we are, in fact, meeting the requirements of the guidelines, but that we are offering the most in-person instruction for our children per day as we possibly can, given the variables within our own school district, our own community, and our own facilities. So that is, again, not an easy task, as you all know very well, but I'll turn it over to Debbie right now, and she can give you a sense of what we're considering and what's out there and what the continued challenges remain. Thanks, Deb.
We were talking about the models that we would be looking at to bring children in. And some of the models that we looked at, other districts are implementing. For instance, the AM/PM sessions for the earlier grades, like a K through 5 or a K through 2. You know, we've gone through iterations of that, and we've said that, you know, there might be school districts with buildings that are large enough or staffs that are large enough that they can, you know, have all K1 or K2 students in all day long. We don't have the size for that. We also, as a district, I don't think that this is a Debbie Hand decision, but I'm not sure at this moment. You know, we didn't decide to close our secondary schools and do remote only with them. I mean, if we decided to do something like that, then yes, we could bring more elementary students in and we could spread them over multiple buildings, right? We could take them out of their elementary schools and we can move them into Highlands and we can move them into the high school. You know, we didn't really talk about those type of models because it seemed like as a district we were, or as a reopening committee, that we were, you know, determined to, you know, provide the best education that we could K through 12. So we came with the plan of bringing children into school 2 days a week in 2 separate grades, in 2 separate groups at the elementary level K through 5, right? One group would be group A, and they would come in on AA day, Monday and Tuesday. And the other group would be group B, and they would come in on Thursday and Friday. We looked at splitting that by alphabet. And the reason why we were trying to split it by alphabet was so that not only the children in elementary school would be able to come into school on the same days as this that lived in the same household, but to see if we could continue that up through the grade levels. Once we got to the secondary level, we realized that splitting by alphabet would not work with them, because once they go into all of their class combinations, numbers were getting thrown off. So the size of our district, it doesn't kind of lead us to be able to split by alphabet as easily as some other districts. So what we used was an algorithm from Infinite Campus that one of the variables is household, your address that you have in Infinite Campus, that you're in the same household. And it can also look at the secondary level, how many students are in each section or class configuration. And then the principals had to match that to you know, a set of data that was given to them by facilities that had the square footage of each room and how many students could fit into each room or each location based on the mandated 6-foot social distancing. So when you put all that together, you can imagine how complex that is to do in buildings as large as Highlands and as large as a high school. So when Highlands and the high school looked at that, they ran that simulation at 50%, and they couldn't do 50% of the students. If they took in 50% of the students 2 days a week, like you'll see many other models, or maybe a model or two, I don't know. There are multiple times when the students in the class that would be in a 50-50 model would not fit in that class with social distancing. And it's not just a couple of situations where you could try to figure out if you could switch children into another section, or if you could, find like a breakout room. It's multiple times that happened. I know Ernie had this figured out in an Excel spreadsheet, so he could share how that looked. So with that said, the secondary level went with the 1 day a week, breaking the student body into quarters and having one quarter come in on Monday, one quarter coming in on Tuesday, the third quarter coming in on, well, I think I messed up. Monday, Tuesday, the third coming in on Thursday, and the fourth coming in on Friday. That seemed like the model that would best meet the needs of social distancing in every single classroom across the schedule. And it also seemed like the best way to maintain a schedule. And it also was a way in which that we could present consistency to our parents, right? So Kara's coming to school every single Monday, and Rena's coming to school every single Tuesday. We can look into a model for the secondary level where we break the classes into thirds. We can see if that runs on the algorithm for Infinite Campus, but we're giving a bit of way to do that. In order to do that, then we're bringing in 3 groups of children instead of 2 groups of children. If we bring them in 2 days a week, we wouldn't be bringing them in 2 days a week, we'd be bringing them in on a cycle. So you bring group 1 in on Monday and Tuesday. If we want to maintain Wednesday as this remote learning for all day, which we've worked pretty hard on making sure that we could do that. Then Thursday and Friday would be group 2. And then the next Monday and Tuesday would be group 3. And then you'd have Wednesday off, and then you'd circle back to group 1 on Thursday and Friday. So that means that the kids that came in on Monday and Tuesday the week before now are coming in on Thursday and Friday the week after. And the schedule would continue like that. So we need feedback from the team, from the committee, if that's something that we'd want to explore. I know that Ernie had worked on something like that at Highlands, and I don't think that the high school has looked into that yet. So that's about school schedules. And once we get a school schedule in place, the bigger work for me from curriculum instruction, because I really see kind of like, how many kids fit in a building, that's like facilities to me. From a curriculum instruction lens, I have to really work on supporting the teachers and making sure that our teachers are ready to teach our children, whether they're in the classroom or whether they're at home. So what we're looking at for that is I met with coordinators and principals. David and Kara met with me as well. And we're talking about what schedules would look like at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level. And you have to look at them differently because elementary teachers obviously have their children all day long, right? So their day is going to look different. So when a parent keeps on saying how much synchronous learning is going to happen during a day, well, it really depends on, where your student is situated within the grade level spans. So at the elementary level, we're looking at morning meeting being a synchronous component of an elementary day, closing circle being also a synchronous component. Math and ELA would be a mixture of asynchronous and synchronous components. A synchronous check-in would happen for ELA and for math for the children that are home. Foundations, which is a word building component of our ELA, would be synchronous. That would be live. iBlock is small group intervention. In ELA and mathematics, we would have that as a synchronous component at home. And then science and social studies, we were talking that would be really teacher discretion. If it was read alouds and you wanted to do a synchronous read aloud, or if you were watching a video or a virtual field trip, kind of have fun with the content areas, and content areas can also be integrated into ELA at the elementary level. At the secondary level, what we're looking at is more of a hybrid lesson plan model where students at home would be engaging in different components of the lesson, the same exact lesson that students are engaging in school. So a teacher would start off synchronously to, welcome the class, to set the learning objective for the day, to talk about what would need to be accomplished within that period. And then the kids at home would start working on their assignments or watching their video or whatever they were assigned to do at home. The students in the classroom would obviously be working with the teacher. Then at another point during the lesson, the teacher would check back in with the children at home, whether it would be a discussion group or a quick check or some kind of a small group type of component to the lesson that would be synchronous at home. So we're thinking that that is the best way to plan lessons in the current situation that we're in, because those lessons presented in that way would also be able to be implemented fully if we went remote for all. I know that there's a lot of discussion around of why aren't we live streaming? Well, you can live stream, but then if you close and everybody's remote for all, what are you live streaming? There's no classroom activity going on, so you haven't really prepared your teachers to teach in this hybrid type of situation that we're in right now. In meeting with Paul, I realized that every time you talk about the high school, you have to say "and Rochambeau," because Rochambeau is bringing all the children in because of the size of the building and the size of the, the student body. And, we're still thinking about Wednesdays and exactly how we can make Wednesdays as strong as it possibly can be, and also supportive for our students, because we really know that that's a lot of the feedback that we got. And then finally, there was a high school student that sent us a plan, a reopening plan. And the reopening plan was, very well thought out with a lot of effort into it. But it talked about things like the 50%, and I already mentioned to you how 50% at the high school is not a possibility. We can't bring in 50% of our children at any given time at the high school or at Highlands unless we did not adhere to social distancing guidelines. So we'd have to make, I know that there's a lot of, questioning out in the community about that. So the reopening committee would really have to, make a decision if we really want to go that route and jeopardize safety to get more children into the building. And then the other thing that the plan had in it from the student was block scheduling. And block scheduling, we've actually looked at at the high school. John Orcutt last year had a scheduling committee and visited numerous different high schools to look at block scheduling. Block scheduling totally changes your school schedule. So if we ever moved into that pandemic or not, we would have to have discussions about, doing away with certain electives and doing away with certain pathways or changing them dramatically. So to change to a block schedule with the type of schedule that we have currently at our high school during a pandemic would drastically change what children were learning, what their transcripts look like, what their projection would be for freshman through senior year. And it would also require additional professional development for teachers, not only professional development to get ready to teach in a hybrid environment, but also how do you teach in a block schedule? How do you teach in a 90-minute period as opposed to a 45-minute period? So I just wanted to mention those couple of things, and that's what we've been working on.
Deb, first of all, thank you for laying out in a really succinct but powerful way. This work has been unfolding over the course of the months, and the amount of thought, effort, and I'm going to say it, love that's gone into this planning process, because it's easy to open a school facility. It's not easy to open a school facility during a pandemic and keep all the children and adults safe. And you have been keeping that at the front of your work. And I have to tell you, and I know, Rosemary, I know everybody's appreciative of that. And also to your colleagues, all of our colleagues who have been working in your subgroup, Deb, thank you. Leila was so patient. She has a question. Go ahead, Tiger.
I was just wondering, would we switch classes, or would we stay in the same class with the same teacher?
At your level, you'd be switching classes so that you can follow your schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Hand up, Mrs. Lyons.
Hi there. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So that the frameworks we talked about would also be helpful in transitioning if we have to pivot to remote. I think that's important to keep in mind. It provides a real structure, and staff is really eager to work with that. Folks really, really want to plan. The second piece is I wanted to highlight while the hybrid model is great because we have contact with our kids, one of the limitations is because we're working with the students in front of us, right? This is very different from the spring. Parents aren't going to have the same kind of access to the teachers for questions, and the students might not necessarily have the same amount of access, right? Because we're together, we're working with a group, we're sending a group off, and we're reconvening, but we're in the building working all day, whereas we were much more accessible to troubleshoot. And I think that's really important for folks to understand that that's one of the trade-offs for in-person live instruction.
I'd like to chime in too. As far as access goes, I have to be honest, my kids didn't really have much contact with their teachers at all in the spring. It was very much assignments were given and then they were turned in. My son was handing his assignments into the wrong teacher at one point, and there was no communication from that teacher that she wasn't even getting the assignments, and the teacher that was getting the assignments didn't even reach out and say, hey kid, I don't know why you're sending me these. You're not even my student. So, I mean, as far as that goes, like, I think the fact that the students will be meeting and at least seeing their teacher once a week is way better than what we had in the spring. So, you know, no disrespect in any way, shape or form, but I think that, you know, that face-to-face communication also makes a teacher say, hey, wait, like you haven't handed anything in months, and the kid to be like, wait, no, yes, I have. Wait, you're not getting it? But there was none of that occurred. And it wasn't until I intervened and I said, you have not gotten credit for any assignment, and I know you've done them. And then we went back and looked, and he was like, I've been sending them to the wrong teacher with the same last name. But there was nothing.
Right. And so it's great. We love to have that contact, and this structure is very different, right? We're going to be able to hold students accountable. Students are going to feel connected to us. But one of the parts at the elementary level is that folks were able to contact the teacher to troubleshoot with technology and help. And I just want to make sure that that's clear, that part will be something that's a little bit different that we're going to have to navigate around. But thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Well, but maybe at the elementary school, but at the high school level. So, Dr. Hand, you had mentioned that we haven't talked about models of like using the high school space, and I'm glad we haven't, because I don't know why we would talk about those models, because high schoolers matter too and are just as important as the elementary schools. So I'm just putting that out there, that like I'm really glad we're not discussing that, because I feel that that's not fair. That's not fair to any high schooler. All their education matters. And they're just as important. And, you know, I know people get hung up on childcare, but you know what? I don't need childcare per se. I need my child to learn and flourish and, you know, become an adult. And at home, online is not creating that environment. I want to talk to the third portion of a third, and a third. I know Valhalla School District is doing a ongoing rotating schedule with no Wednesday interruption. So they have two groups that go Monday, Tuesday, then the second group goes Thursday, Friday, then the first group goes back Friday, Monday, and they continue on that cycle. You know, so some days, some weeks, children are actually getting 3 days a week of instruction. So that's something we could consider. I know you're preserving the Wednesday for, you know, I don't know, remote learning or check-ins or cleaning. I'm not really 100% sure why the effort is so strong to preserve those Wednesdays right now, as opposed to get as many kids in school as possible. But that's one thing that I wanted to comment on. And the last thing I wanted to comment on is the 6 feet social distancing. You mentioned jeopardizing social distancing. So my understanding of the rule is it's either 6 feet or a mask. And it's my understanding that the district is going with 6 feet and a mask. So, you know, and I was being led to believe by people that the rule was 6 feet and a mask, although I can't find that documented anywhere. But if that's the case, I understand the abundance of safety, but you know, the abundance of safety at what expense? You know, are other districts doing 3 feet and a mask? You know, so that's just something to consider there. I've also seen teachers on Facebook putting on full gear, a mask, you know, a gown, face shield. And like, I'm gonna be honest, as a healthcare professional, we're not even dressing like that anymore unless people are confirmed positive. That's all.
Thanks, Suzette. And I just want, you know, the 1 day a week or how many times a week it's going to be, they will have daily contact with their teachers. I want to get that point across. Even if they are home, they will have daily contact with their teachers. So that model is very, very different than the spring model that we had. And I just want to remind everybody that the reason why we had the spring model that we had is because we were in the beginning stages of this, and we were really making adjustments to what people were living through and what they were working through at that time. And again, through, you know, committee discussions and working with the principals and working with large groups, we were saying that, you know, we wanted to give children the most opportunity to be as flexible as they needed to be to get their work done. It worked for some children, it didn't work for other children. And this very structured approach is gonna work for some children, it's not gonna work for other children. And that's how it's going to, you know, we're just going to have to really support. So when you say, what are you doing on Wednesdays? We have to, you know, we're to the greatest degree possible, we want to make sure that we are continuing learning on that Wednesday and also supporting children that need the additional support at home. So, you know, we have plans to bring in the consultant teacher students and the ICT special ed students, and also the special class students. We looked into bringing in homeless students on that day to see if we could give them some individualized support. Not the problem, but the difficulty, the challenge with that is that they are dispersed through all different classes. So you'd actually have to like run a schedule for them to be able to support them if they came in on a Wednesday. We also looked at bringing in our newcomers, our entering and emerging students who are just learning, just new to the country. In some cases, we have too many children to bring in you know, to put them into groups, like for example, at the elementary level. So we're looking at the numbers of students to see who we can bring in and who we can support. But Wednesdays are also important for the afternoons. We're hoping that we'd be able to have time for collaborative planning for teachers and for professional development for teachers. And that is something that's going to have to be ongoing in a district our size. We're asking our teachers to do 2 things at once, and we need to provide them the time to collaboratively work together to be successful at this. We don't want to not give the time that we need to make sure that we're able to teach in a hybrid learning environment and make it, you know, a meaningful a meaningful experience for the children that are in school and the children that are home as well. But we're getting a lot of questions based on last spring, and it looks very, very different than last spring. You know, every single school day will be starting with a meeting, you know, a morning meeting in elementary school, a homeroom meeting at the middle school, an advisory meeting at the high school. You'll be starting off with, you know, with a teacher telling you and helping you through that day. If you're at a secondary schedule, you'll have a teacher that leads you into every single lesson, that sets up that lesson for you, gives you some time to do independent work, and then checks back in with you. So that's going to happen all day long for every single one of your classes. The accountability is built right into that. I think from being a parent of 2 boys, the challenge there is going to be at the home front to make sure that the children engage in that, you know, at-home learning opportunity just as they would if they went to school. So, you know, I think that that's something else that we're going to have to support and call up and use Wednesdays to follow up and to make sure that all of our children are following the pace that we're setting for them.
No, I understand that it's going to be different, and I understand your effort to get these earmarked children in more frequently, but I have sent an email to Principal Doherty, to Principal Ricca, and all the board members. I'm not sure if you were on it, but all of our children are currently at risk for something. And not just the ones the governor is identifying. I mean, there are parents who can't get their kids out of bed. There's teen suicide is way up. Teen substance abuse is way up. The media isn't focusing on it. There's been very little talk about it, but all of these kids are at risk right now. Their mental health issues are way at risk right now. Some of them are afraid to go to school. Some of them just want to get out. And so all of our kids are at risk, and we need to get them all in as often as possible. And I just think that, our approach, and although I appreciate a lot of thought and effort is going into this, I feel like our approach of 1 day a week right now isn't really making anybody happy. We have no continued, no solid, only remote learning. I feel like we have two pools of people right now. We have people who don't want their kids to go to school, and we have people who do want their kids to go to school. And so right now, our 1 day a week doesn't make either one of them happy, because we don't have a complete remote learning model. And 1 day a week, like, some of the people are like, really, why bother for 1 day a week? I want my kid to go more, So I think that we kind of really need to try to get kids in more. At the high school level, at the elementary school level, you are getting them in twice a week.
Yeah, and then the last thing that I want to say is, just because you ended with the elementary is coming in twice a week. And there are elementary parents that are saying, oh, but other school districts are going an AM, PM schedule. And that is something that we did look at. It's definitely not as, I think our schedule is much more advantageous than an AM, PM schedule. And if anybody in this committee has ever worked with small children, to bring small children into a school building for a few hours in the morning and then for a few hours in the evening, much of that time is lost to transitioning kids, making sure that they have their grab and go breakfast or their grab and go lunch, getting them ready for, entry, getting them ready for dismissal. And yes, they will have a couple of hours in between that are instructional hours, but by bringing in children for 2 full days a week, I think if you add up the instructional hours, you're going to find more instruction with that week than you would if you went to an AM, PM schedule. The other thing that I was concerned from an educational standpoint about AM, PM is that if you're bringing in children for AM, PM, and they're working with your teachers and they're teaching ELA and mathematics, then you're basically leaving all your other subjects behind. It's turning into like this remediation for ELA and math, because if teachers are teaching ELA and math in the morning and ELA and math to a second group in the afternoon, there's no time for science, there's no time for social studies. And I think that would be very important to me.
Thank you, Dr. Hand, and I also thank you, Mrs. Vitale. I want to honor and just thank you for your strong voice related to the schedule. I think it's important, and I think this committee really does understand that folks are not happy, and that happiness, the achievement of happiness, is going to be a real challenge if that's the goal of the committee. The goal, of course, is to try and do the very best we can and keep our kids and our community safe, and at the same time honor the needs and the requests of as many of our parents and guardians and community members as we possibly can. It really, of course, really complex, but we'll keep exploring, and we'll keep looking at how we can do things better. So I really do appreciate that. Other questions? Any other questions for Dr. Hand? Well, again, thank you, Deb. This committee is again, it's a big job, and you being part of this is important. You're all leaders in our educational community. You're all part of the body that is considering and making plans if, in fact, we are permitted to reopen facilities. The governor was very clear on Tuesday, as we have been in our community, that the voice of parents and guardians and stakeholders is critical in the planning process. It is important for all of us to hear from each other, our voices on this committee. You are immersed in this topic. You know as much as there is to know about what's happening, what the thinking is, what the thought process is. Today, and I'm going to do this now every week moving forward, today I'm going to ask you a very simple question in its construction, but it's a very complex question when you consider it. It's yes or no. There's no qualifications. And the question is, right now, do you believe, think, feel, believe, that opening school facilities during a pandemic is safe? It's yes or no. Mr. Bratchett.
I'm sort of in between, but since I'm
yes or no?
I'm going to go with no.
Thank you. Joe Ricca, no. Laura Mungin.
No.
Scott Pepper.
No.
James Dean.
No.
Deborah Algarton.
No.
Ed Mara.
Yes.
Ernest Spatafor.
No.
Dan Vaccaro-Teich.
No.
Ellen Doherty.
No.
Magalyracioppo.
No.
Rosemary Eller.
No.
Gina Norfleet.
No.
Michael Eaton. Frank Stefanelli might be with vendors.
He's with vendors.
Phyllis Paul.
No.
Suzette Vitale.
Yes.
Carol Lyons.
No.
Rena Strangolini.
No.
Reagan Figueroa.
No.
Debbie Hand.
No.
Deanna Garino.
Yes.
Sergio Alfonso.
No, Doctor.
Leila Tomlin.
No.
Cheryl Brady.
No.
Ron Velez.
No.
Who did I miss?
Dr. Ricca, this is Mr. Eaton. I was a no. I was on mute. I apologize.
Oh, thanks. No problem. Christina Brown.
That's a no.
Liza Torres.
No.
Okay. Hard question. Thank you for answering. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. We're going to keep going forward. We'll have a meeting next week. We are available all the time. We're going to do another Q&A next week as well with our community. We're going to get that survey data for you. I'm going to send you the FAQs from the County of Westchester for you to examine. You're doing amazing work. It's historic work. Thank you so much for all of this dedication to our kids. Anybody have any final thoughts?
I do. If obviously the consensus is it's not safe, are we just spinning our wheels here? I mean, at the end of the day, are we just not going to go back to school?
I don't think so. I think it's important for all of us to hear from each other. And I don't think that, I wasn't even taking consensus. I just wanted to hear your voice.
Okay. Because I mean, I hate to be like the bearer of this, but the mayor says, you wear a mask for me, I wear a mask for you. You know what? I go to work to take care of your elderly parent. You go to work to teach my kid. The essential workers at the supermarket go to work so that you can have food on your table. The constructions go to work, that's what community is. And yes, we're in a time of pandemic, but if we all just threw up our hands and locked our doors and stay home, there'd be a lot more people starving. There'd be a lot more people on Skid Row. The men that got killed yesterday sitting in their cars when trees fell on them. You know what? It's dangerous to drive a car. It's dangerous to do a lot of things, but we still do them. And, we can all roll over and just die and say, this is the life we're going to live. And I'm sorry, I'd rather have said, I saw my mother yesterday and I died today than say, I haven't seen my mother in 6 months and I died today. Because life is about a full life and it's about connecting with people. And if we're all going to live in our own little bubble, then really is that a life worth living?
Suzette?
Thank you, Mrs. Vitale. I think that's really important, and I appreciate, and I know our colleagues appreciate that. One of the challenges, of course, with this committee is that we're making decisions for other people's children. And that is a little bit different than when we make decisions about our own children. and our
Oh,
own lives. And that
I
was,
get it.
no, I'm not arguing, Ms. Vitale, your comments are taken. I just, just so we're qualifying it, and we're not making a decision right now. I just wanted to hear from all of you.
No, but I'm saying,
This-
just as we have the decision to not send your kid to school, then other people should have the decision to send their kid to school. I'm not disagreeing. Everybody has the right to a decision.
Suzette, this is Cheryl. I just want to say that the question was posed in a very black and white way. And so for me, is it safe? Meaning, can I guarantee or can we guarantee the safety of every single child and staff member, by opening schools? That's how I was forced to interpret it, which is not the same thing as, balancing all the factors that need to be balanced into whether we should open schools.
I agree 100%. And that's why I think it was,
Friends,
light
you're qualifying. You're qualifying. You're qualifying. We're part of this committee. All I asked is what you thought. That's all. No one's judging. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, I have to just run off to a work meeting. What I would like to say again is that on behalf of the Board of Education, we realize the enormity of this work. But what we also value is that every single person has a voice and it deserves to be heard. So I just wanted to underscore that this is difficult on so many levels, and everyone is here, and many of you are professionals. You represent our community. You represent our parent-teacher organizations. You represent a voice of our community, and we must include all the voices, whether or not there's total agreement, half agreement, or no agreement. Your voice must be heard, so everything is considered. So I just wanted to emphasize that, and thank you all for your opinions. Whether you 100% agree or 100% disagree, it's important for this process that we know what you are all thinking, because you all represent a segment of our community. You love our schools, and above all, I know that you all agree that safety of our students and staff are paramount. We want to make sure that on our watch, we do every single possible thing for every single student and teacher to keep them in absolute safety. I thank you, and thank you, Dr. Ricca, and I am sorry I'm going to have to drop off for a meeting.
Rosemary, that's why you're president of the Board of Education. Couldn't have asked for a better wrap up. Thank you so much. Everyone, thanks. Stay safe, keep working hard. We'll get you that information today. Have a great day.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.